is it possible to expand? You said too fast?
Too soon and too much.
100%. Like if you expand too fast or too much, it could put you out of business.
There's some people out in commerce and chill land who are coming out of being shut down after the pandemic and trying to figure out what's next for their business. And now is a great time for them to evaluate whether or not they should grow.
They should.
Right after you put your phone on pause.
Somebody calling me because we're ready to grow. Here comes the business.
So in today's episode,
New Jersey calling me.
What we're going to share with you is about the process of expanding your business and how we expanded our respective businesses and some things that you can consider as you think about whether or not now is the right time, an appropriate time for you to expand your business. So, Chief, when you think about growing a business, what does that technically mean to you?
It means a lot of things. Because first of all, people talk about growth. Like people come and interview with us all the time, right? Put my pen away. And
here we go.
One of the things they say.
Why did you leave your last job?
No, not that one. Well, yeah, that too. But the classic question I ask people,
what are you looking for in your next job?
What are you looking for? Like, why do you want to work with our team? And they're like, I'm looking for growth. I'm like, okay, cool. Can you tell me what growth is to you? Like, what is growth? And like 7 out of 10 people look at me like with this blank face, and they're like, more opportunity. And I'm like, okay, growth to you is more opportunity. What is more opportunity? Like, because more opportunity could be in there is like you want to work at a place that has more snacks in the kitchen,
or you want to work at a place that has more overtime.
Right. It depends. It's all relative. So when you talk about growth, especially in business, I think it encompasses a lot of different things, and I think it's relative to the owner operator of that business, what they envision, what their goals are. Because growth could be gross profits, right? That doesn't necessarily mean you're making more money.
No, it does if it's gross profits.
Well, you're making it, but you're not netting it, right? You can
have it's still profits.
Gross profit,
as opposed to gross revenue or gross income or gross sales.
I'm sorry, I meant to say gross revenue. I said gross profit, but yeah, I don't want to talk about that because that's something that gets on my nerves with the whole GAAP general accounting principles with that whole gross profit, et cetera, et cetera. But I meant to say gross revenue. Thank you. You could have growth in revenue, but then, what type of revenue it is. Is it? You could have, growth in clients. You could have growth in expansion. You're opening up, more locations. You could have growth if, you're e-commerce and you're selling in other countries or, other states. So it's relative when you talk about growth.
So in other words, as you think about your personal business, you want to be able to define what growth is for you, whether that means an increase in your revenues, an increase in your profit, an increase in the number of products or services that you offer, an increase in the geography that you serve, the increase in the number of clients, or an increase in the number of people you employ. That's the first place where you should start to determine whether or not growth is possible and whether or not it's an appropriate time.
And it's going to be profitable.
Oh, yeah. You always want it to be profitable. So then what does growth mean when we talk about the soapbox? And especially if you look at the last 2 years.
So it's number one, I'm concerned with the most important growth for me is net profit. And you won't have to correct me on that one because that is net profit. The bottom line, how much are we clearing once all the expenses are taken care of? So that's one thing for growth for me. And then obviously attracting and getting new clients to use a service and retaining them. So we're looking at a couple different things. I would say probably also, which is on the list. I'm not going to say it's at the top of the list, but expansion, you talked about earlier, geographic, going to more areas to service more clients based on the the demand that we're getting.
So, in your management, operation, leadership of the Soapbox, you get to work with a lot of different entrepreneurs and a lot of different business owners. What do you see as some of the consistent themes of business owners you work with who have successfully expanded their businesses or their brands?
Service and quality. So the quality of their service or product, and the consistency. So the quality of the service and product and the consistency in which they perform it or deliver it. So we can use Sydney Sweets as an example.
Okay. Shout out to Sydney Sweets, Jermaine and Sydney. What's good, friends?
So when we get their cakes, like we did the cupcake jars many moons ago, and we gave them out to all of our clients. The product looked, the presentation was on point, and the taste of the product was on point. Then we ordered some for ourselves, for the team. We gave some away to some other people as gifts, and the product looked, again, presentation wise, was on point, and the taste was there. So it was a consistent product throughout the years that we've been
working with them, patronizing them.
All right, I would say both, and as well as consuming it, because I eat that stuff too. It's like crack. Yeah, and it's been, so the quality of the product and the service has been consistent, and it's been good. So you want to be consistent, but also you want it to be good. Like, you don't want to have consistent crap. So yeah, like, I'm sorry, like, some people are consistently not good at stuff, like, and you should recognize that and not do it. Like, and if that is an intricate part of your business, you need to figure out, do I need to outsource it? Do I need to hire someone to do it? Whatever it might be. But if you need it done for your business, you have to figure out, how do you get good at it?
Right.
Whether you do it, you bring somebody else in, or you out, whatever it might be. But you have to get good at it if you need it.
Well, I'm just going to put a sticky note right here in this point of the conversation, because during COVID, we've heard so many people and business owners talking about that pivot. What is the pivot? What are they going to do differently? And so that's led to an increase of people expanding the scope of their businesses. And, the pandemic made a lot of people have to do it, but that doesn't mean that everybody did it correctly. And so,
Yep.
And so, can you give an example of maybe a story that you read, maybe not necessarily someone that you know personally, who has expanded and the results have been not as successful?
I mean, I know of some people, and I won't, put them out there like that, but who are in variety of industries, whether it's a service industry or like the food industry or beverage, that they pivoted, you're saying, during COVID. And let me put it this way. I don't think they weren't as successful as they could have been because they pivoted during COVID. I truly believe, from what I saw and just from what I heard from them, that they did this pivot during COVID, and then they didn't commit to it 100%. Not even 100%. They didn't commit to it like 80, 85%. So they did it, and then they didn't see any results, like, I don't know, in like, a week or two. And they were just like, yeah, I'm going to, start selling bricks now instead of, selling cars or whatever. I was like, they didn't stick with it. And because they didn't stick with it and be consistent, as we talked about earlier, they never saw any results from it. They didn't see, is this a viable pivot for us? I think they tapped out too soon on it because they didn't commit to it 100%. I mean, that was the, biggest thing that I noticed and saw or heard. So
would you say that there's a such thing as expanding too much or expanding too soon?
100%. Like, I mean, we could talk about that from your perspective, like with JSB earlier, when we were getting a lot of calls in business. Like, what was your take on it, as far as people were calling for all types of security business to do? And we talked about niching down in the last episode, but what was your take and experience on when the phone was just ringing off the hook and people were asking about special events, secure construction, right, residential?
I'm a firm believer that you have to focus, and if you have too many visions, then it becomes D vision. Like literally your vision is split in half. And so you really have to find a way to focus on what the logical expansion is going to be for you. Even during COVID, right? We've seen a significant increase in the amount of services Johnson Security provides in healthcare facilities. But we literally had days where 4 or 5 different healthcare facilities would call and say, we want you to start tomorrow.
Now.
And in some cases, they would say, we want one person 40 hours a week, which is manageable. I can go down in the basement and find a person that can work 40 hours a week. In many cases, they said, we want somebody to be here off hours, 128 hours a week. So when our staff isn't on site, we want your person there. But in some cases, we had facilities that were asking for anywhere from 5 to 20 people per shift, which is a significant lift in terms of recruiting, in terms of onboarding and in training before we could dispatch those people. So that's nothing that we would be able to do overnight.
Well, we could, but the question is, are they going to get some consistent quality people? Because we could easily just go find some Joe Schmo. You got a license? Yeah. Come here. Let me check your credentials. You're registered with the state. Okay. Fill out this paperwork and go to work tomorrow. We could, but is that going to be good service?
Right. If we think about what we've already discussed so far in terms of what we define as growth, what are the success determinants in committing, those opportunities wherein they might have been grand in scope and scale weren't necessarily the best fit for how we do business, how our employees are able to respond to client requests, and then what the clients were looking for. So there were some cases where we had to say, no, thank you. We made every attempt.
Oh, we told them, listen, can you wait 2 weeks, a week,
and
whatever.
they're like, oh no. Matter of fact, we had one person, one organization that they started off with a really high number of people, and then they whittled that number down and whittled that number down. And then they were like, we no longer need your services. It's like, okay.
Right. And it's not like we're selling widgets here. Like
these are real people.
These are people. So they're counting on the hours to go to work, which goes back to what we talked about before. You got to make sure it's always a good fit between your expectations and your potential or your client's expectations. You know, if they're thinking about one thing and you're thinking about another, it's not going to be a good fit.
Right.
Right.
Right. And then we had the same organization call back, was it 4 weeks ago. And they said they wanted a gazillion people for a billion man hours. And they asked for a proposal. We submitted them a proposal. We posted the job ads.
People was lining up like crazy.
We had applicants coming in the door.
Then they call.
And then I called back and said, okay, so what's the status? They were like, oh, we're just collecting quotes.
But that's not what you said when you first called. You was like, oh, we need these people to start next week. So make sure you're in alignment with it. But going back to your original point, you were talking about, is it possible to expand? You said too fast?
Too soon and too much.
100%. Like if you expand too fast or too much, it could put you out of business. So depending on what type of business you have or service, and then what your payment terms are, you could get a whole bunch of business really fast, right? And I personally know of people who got interest from, they sell products, and they got interest from retailers to say, we want to put your product on the shelf. That's an awesome thing. But the question is, the thing is, if you don't have that product sitting in inventory, which I hope you don't have too much sitting in inventory,
because that's money.
That's money sitting around, or you don't have your supply chain is very long, or you don't have the revenue to fulfill that order, then you can't put that product on the shelf, right? Or if you're in a service-based business and you need to hire people to perform the duties, and you hire them and they perform the work, but then you have like a net 30 payment agreement. So you have to front all that payroll, and depending what kind of work they're doing, like they need supplies and materials, you have to front those supplies and materials and then wait to get paid. So if you got a whole influx of clients all of a sudden and you have to put out all this money to get those jobs started, maybe you take a deposit from them, et cetera, et cetera. Or maybe you're fortunate enough to get them to pay in full. God bless you. Because I can't think of any service or vendors we use. Maybe, a few SaaS products where we pay in full, before the work is actually done.
Right.
Like, so it could put you out of business because you have to float it. You have to have the capital to start those new projects.
I was thinking about you need resources. So money, time, and the basic business infrastructure are key to expanding your business.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about infrastructure because it could just tax the whole system.
But in terms of resources, I was just thinking this morning while I was upstairs, we've hired a significant number of staff here in the office since this time last year. So we have a lot more people coming in and out. We're burning a lot more electricity. We're sitting a lot closer because there are more of us in here. But it's little things that you don't take into account. Like we go through bottled water like what seems twice the pace that we used to because there's so many more people
in this office.
There's a lot of thirst. This is a thirst trap right here. One of the other things that we go through that you might not even think about, especially not if you lease office space, is we go through a lot of tissue paper.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of bums.
A lot of bums and a lot of runny noses.
The more bums, then the season changes. Like runny noses, people need tissue. Like you have to take account for every single detail when you run a business, and you just don't realize those like ancillary things. They can creep up on your bottom line really, really quickly. Right. Like you be like, we spent how much on whiteout? Like why are we making so much mistakes? Or we spent
get a pencil with an eraser.
Right. Or how much like toner ink is really expensive. Whoa. Like I just had to drop an F-bomb because it's that expensive. And then when you take it back, you only get like $2-3 credit. Like, come on, you guys know you're refilling them and reselling them right back to us. Come on, give me a break. Right?
So know what your TP factor is. What is your toilet paper factor? What is the resource that is going to increase your cost of doing business if you expand? Know those numbers before you make a decision whether or not it's a good time, appropriate time for you to expand your business.
So what would you recommend to, all of our viewers and listeners if, they're running a small business or they're just started out and they're starting to get some traction because things are kind of opening back up because of COVID? What would you tell them, or what suggestions would you give them to manage this new growth that they have coming, or these potential clients, so they can handle it in the right way?
So let me just take 2 steps back and say one of the reasons that we ended up on this topic today was because Johnson Security has been working in the transportation space. We're certified as a disadvantaged business enterprise, which is a program that's run through the U.S. Department of Transportation, and each state manages its own DBE program. So we've been certified as a DBE following the 2009 the 2008 crash, because when Obama came into office in 2009, he put a lot of money behind transportation. And I remember as vivid as yesterday, Jorge Mercado with the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. I met him at
Port Authority event?
Yes, a Port Authority networking event. And he encouraged me to get certified because I network.
You're good
Make
at
the
it.
network so I get my net profits, right?
That's why you got to have, someone who compliments. Like, I'm like okay with it for like the first 20 minutes, and I'm like, I get out of here.
But Jorge's advice to me was follow the money. He knew that there were federal monies coming down for transportation projects, and there were some very specific large-scale projects coming to the New York, New Jersey metropolitan area. So he said, get certified, go to the events, know who the major players are so that you can get your share of that money. And now here it is, 12 years later since we've been certified, and we've had a good number of transportation-related projects. So in trying to figure out how do we take that to the next level, we were approached by a larger firm that said, hey, have you thought about doing business at airports? Because the TSA has this program that looks for small businesses to do the screening services at a select number of airports. Now, on our own, this is not something that we would have gone after, right? Because we're pretty conservative.
Yeah.
I mean, even though some of the things we say don't always seem like.
We're aggressive and conservative at the same time. But it goes back to what we said about being focused on certain type of business and making sure we do that business well.
Right. So this large company came to us, and we started working on a proposal early last year, didn't submit it until September last year. And then recently we learned that we were admitted to this program. So one of the guys on the team was like, Miss J, like that could be an awesome expansion. Why don't you talk to the folks in Commerce and Chill Land about what that could potentially mean for the business? Well, in addition to...
It means less sleep for me.
That's not
and
what
more
that
gray
means.
hairs.
If that's what you think, that's what's going to come about.
I am not manifesting that.
You see, that's how he says now. But when we get our first million from the airports, he's going to be like, snitches, I got my money. Net profit.
Let's be clear.
Net airport profit.
Oh, long as it's net. Let's be clear. Make sure it's a net million.
Net
I don't want to
airport
hear.
profit.
It's the first person to tell me it's gross. I'm going to be like, get out of here with that. I want to hear net. N-E-T. Because I need a new studio to film Commerce and Chilling.
So understand that that is a significant pivot from what we're currently doing, right? Because the majority of the airports in the program are not in New York State. So we have to be forward thinking about how do we reimagine our business infrastructure? Do we have the right resources in place? Luckily, we have partners with whom we can work. What is the upscale opportunity? So I believe the program is about, I'm going to screw these numbers all up, but let's say in a good year, it's a $25 billion, it's a $5 billion program over 5 years.
So $1 billion a year.
$1 billion a year.
I'll take 1% of that.
22 companies.
Net.
22 companies in the program.
Right.
So even if you just took an average of that.
Listen, what people get so hung up, and I just posted something about this, about having the right partnership, not just having a partnership, but having the right partnerships. You're able to accomplish a lot more than what you can do by yourself or try and do by yourself. Jeff Bezos does not own 100% of Amazon.
That he does
and
not.
He's one of the richest mofos in the world. Last time I heard, he owned 16%. So 16% of whatever Amazon is worth, a gajillion, is a hell of a lot more of if he would have stayed back in the day and say, I'm going to build this myself. I'm not taking on no partners. I'm not taking no investor money, no strategic alliances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So think about that.
So to go back to your original question, how do we determine if it's right to expand? We listen to what the marketplace is saying. Where is the money going? Go to where the money is and understand what your value is in that money train. Talk to other people, especially people who have more experience, more knowledge, more wisdom about a situation, an industry, a product or service, so that you can increase your business acumen, you can increase your product or service knowledge by virtue of talking to and potentially working with those individuals. Make sure that you have sufficient resources. Also make sure that you have a sufficiently large vision. Because if our goal were to only grow JSB by 10%, well, then we could do that sitting at home. Well, shoot, we could call 3 more clients, maintain the clients that we have, and easily grow 10%. But if our goal is to grow our net profits by a substantial amount, then we're going to have to do something substantially different that will include expansion. So that's my thought process around expansion. And I hope that gives you some ideas of some of the things that you can consider when you're thinking about taking your small business a little bit less small.
Yeah. And you don't have to expand by yourself. I mean, in a good example, let's you jump back to the soapbox. Shout out to Cheryl and
630 cleaning.
630 sneaker cleaning. So at the box we do laundry, dry cleaning, and sneaker cleaning. Now let's be clear. I had no thought. It wasn't written on the back of a napkin.
Does this man look like a sneakerhead to you?
No.
But
it's slowly creeping up on me because I've seen some Nikes that I was like, yo, I might have to try and get those. But I just got to figure out how I can wear them to work with a suit. But I had no thoughts of it, nothing. Cheryl came in the store and we just started talking, develop a relationship about her starting and growing her business. And then to this day, I'd have to ask Cheryl how exactly it happened, what was the exact conversation. But at some point in time, we were like, hey, we could do this together. So we started working together and we started offering the sneaker cleaning service as part of our portfolio services at the Soapbox. And it started out slow, and then we put more behind it. We changed the way we presented things. We, put the sneakers in a bag. Then we upgraded to getting custom-made boxes to put the sneakers in, and the presentation. And business picked up, and like there are quite a few people are calling, like people drop them off, and now people put them with their laundry or dry cleaning, or people just make an order and like, come pick up my 5 pair of sneakers and clean them. And the other day we had somebody hit us up and was like, yeah, like I got to reach back out to them too. I want to drop off 50 pair of sneakers for you guys to clean. Mm-hmm. And they want to work in a partnership with us because they sell sneakers.
Right.
So obviously they want them cleaned and presented a certain way before they put them on the market, or they hand them over to their clients. So, we were able to expand into that, add another revenue stream, a very good revenue stream,
and bring new customer base into our fold, as well as expose Cheryl and her business to our existing client base.
So it worked both ways. So her current client list got exposed to the services we offer, and then our current client list got exposed to the services she offers. So together we've made it a complementary of these 3 services that they don't compete against each other, and they go hand in hand, because it's a cleaning of garments from head to toe. That's all it is. We're cleaning everything on your body from head to toe that you would wear and put on your body from head to toe, not your actual body. But it goes back to what we said about having the right partnerships, the right minded people, and then doing a good job with that.
Right.
So
wherever you are in your business, you may or may not be ready for growth. But think about this quote from James Cash Penny.
First of all, his middle name is Cash. I never knew J.C. Penney's middle name was Cash.
Yes, James Cash Penny, the founder of J.C. Penney stores. He said, "Growth is never by mere chance. It is a result of forces working together." Take our advice. Define what growth looks like and what it means to you. Look at the success determinants such as service, quality, and consistency. Commit to whatever expansion you decide is going to be your path to growth. Make sure you have the resources and have a strong team to support that. And then just in closing, I'll give you some stats to consider. Among startups that didn't make it, 42% said it was because they had products that didn't cater to what the market wanted or needed. No matter how passionate you are about a thing, if you can't create a customer base, it's not a viable business. So like I said, follow the money, know where the opportunities are, and then go there. And then lastly, around 69% of people start a business in their home and then move outside of their office later, only if the income and space need warrant it. No matter where you start your business, being smart about money and spending can bolster your success so that you can grow out of your home office into additional office space to be able to meet the demand of your expansion efforts. So I hope that we gave you a lot of actionable tips to help as you decide to grow your business and whether or not now is the appropriate time to do that. Cope, do you have any closing notes for the folks in Commerce and Chill Land?
Just expand when it's right, and you'll know when it's right when it hurts. Don't do it to look cool. Don't do it because the other person or some other business you saw on social or somebody you follow on social was like, oh, we got a new office space and we put ping pong table and we put beer on tap. Like, it don't mean jack. And everybody is in a different space. Don't compare your chapter 3 to somebody else's chapter 23.